So in this position, we're given a two-part question. The first part is, should black defend or not defend the pawn on d5, which is attacked by the rook here on d1, and is not defended at the moment, not directly in any event. And the second question is, what is black's best move? So there's obviously a relationship between those questions. So it's not entirely clear whether white would need to defend, or black would need to defend the pawn on d5, but it would seem he should. Well, so if rook takes d5, if we imagine first of all that it's white's move in this position and he plays rook takes d5, would black have any resources that would suggest that he couldn't do that? Is there some preventive move, some response here? And the first thing that I think about here is maybe knight takes b2, which I'm a little skeptical of. It doesn't seem to work, because then at a minimum we should be able to play here rook c5 check for white and then recapture, and I can't see any reason that that would be a desirable continuation for black. Although, maybe I gotta think about it a little bit more. So we have here rook takes d5 for white, knight takes b2, and then among other moves we can consider here rook c5 check, and then let's just say we play bishop to c6 to block that check. And after the bishop blocks on c6, now the king takes on b2, and then we get here knight d3 check, and bishop takes, and then we get rook takes e2, and then at the end of that, because we got bishop takes, the bishop and knight are defending e2. So there's no immediate tactical defense of d5, it doesn't seem like. That seems pretty far out there. So it seems like if white can capture on d5 in this move, if it was white's move, that he would be able to get away with capturing on d5. In any event, that's my gut reaction, is that if it's white's move, he would capture on d5. So I think he would capture on d5. Woo, this is difficult. I wouldn't want to capture on d5 as white. It just feels, just in principle, it feels like after capturing on d5, all of white's pieces seem discoordinated. They seem discoordinated in the moment. So let's think about specific black moves, though, for a moment. So in this position, well, the first question is, what about just knight takes b2 right away? So we have this knight takes b2 move that we were looking at after rook takes d5, and I can't see why I shouldn't play it on this move. So if knight takes b2, first of all, if king takes b2, then we have this knight to c4 check, and then we just capture here on e2, and that looks really, really good for black. I would think that that would be winning, or very close to it. So knight takes b2, and I don't think we can play king takes. Do we have other moves here? So maybe we could throw here the move rook takes e5 for white, just immediately giving up the rook, so that we're not worried about the discovered attack on the rook if we capture on b2. And well, in this position, after knight takes b2, rook takes e5, it looks like this knight can keep chomping and capture on d1. Maybe. And then after rook takes e7 and rook captures on e7, at the end of that, now the bishop has to capture back on d1, and then we just get that rook on e7 down to e1. So that looks really, really good for black. Well, that would be a win for black, because he would be forking the knight and the bishop on d1 at the end of that line. So let's take another look at that line, because maybe this is just a solution for black. We have here knight takes b2, and then we have knight takes b2, rook takes e5, and then we have knight takes d1, and we're going to have to play here rook takes e7, and then we have rook takes e7, and then we have here bishop takes d1, and then at the end of that, the stinger in the tail is rook to e1. Stinger at the tail end of the combination. It looks like that's a pretty clean win. So maybe this just wins. Let's double check one more time. Knight takes b2, and here we can't take the knight because of knight c4 check and rook captures e2, and we can't play rook takes e5. White's pawns are kind of shattered, and if he doesn't do anything, he's lost a pawn right away. And there's also this knight move to a4 that threatens to come in and capture this pawn on c3 that's really hard to defend against. So all of this looks really good. So knight takes b2, and I guess the only move here is going to be rook takes d5. And just in principle, I think that black has gained a lot by this exchange, because he shattered white's pawns and he gave up sort of a weak pawn on d5. So positionally, this feels like it might be close to winning, and at the end of that, I think maybe the knight just goes over here to a4, and the knight's threatening to capture on c3 with a fork of both rooks and the king. It's very difficult to find a defense of that pawn. For instance, imagine even something sort of silly like king a1 just getting out of the way, so that if the knight were to give check, if the knight were to take the pawn, white would give check here with the rook sliding over, and you'd fork the king and the knight and you'd get it. But in this position, black would just be able to play bishop c6, attacking the rook on d5. After the rook moves away, black's going to take on c3. So knight takes b2 looks to me like it at least wins a pawn, and shatters white's pawn structure on the queen side, and in general it just looks very, very strong. So I think knight takes b2 here is the correct answer. And so that also answers part one of the question, which is, should black defend or not defend d5? And it looks like he should not defend d5. He should take advantage of this opportunity to play this tactic, knight takes b2. So as it turns out, knight takes b2 is the correct solution. The authors point out that if black were to defend the d5 pawn, for instance after bishop c6, knight d4, white would actually be doing quite well. But knight takes b2 and the line that we were looking at here with rook captures d5 and then the strong knight a4 to follow up is winning for black, or very, very close to winning. He grabs a very clean pawn. He's going to be able to pick up on knight with knight takes c3, and in general, white has proven himself to be poorly coordinated, which has allowed black to take advantage of his tactical chances in this position. So this is the game Hort, and here knight takes b2 is the correct solution.